All right, we've got head coach Eric Ramsay. Eric, thank you for joining us following tonight's match. You've got Andy and John on, and I'll just have them go back and forth. So, Andy, why don't you kick us off?
Eric, what are your general thoughts tonight?
Yeah, I'm frustrated because I felt like it was a game that we were in all the way through, and we've obviously had a couple of really clear cut big chances early on in the game. That I think when you come to somewhere like this, you're pretty reliant on taking the relatively few chances that you're going to get over the course of a game. So I felt like we certainly had enough to have come away with at least a draw. That hasn't been the case, but ultimately I felt today was, yeah, it was about the result to an extent, but the biggest thing for me was that we reflected a team that had had a really good 6 week preseason. I wanted the team to look very competitive against what will be, I'm sure, one of the top two teams, certainly in our division, if not over the course of the entire 30 this year. So when we saw that, obviously we were, yeah, we didn't dominate the ball, but by design, that was the case today. And I didn't feel like there were many occasions where we were really opened up, and I think we controlled a lot of their top players really, really intelligently, diligently, in a very disciplined way. So I was pleased with the crux of the performance, but I'm frustrated now for sure.
Did the goal that the team ended up giving up just feel like one of those that's almost unpreventable in a sense?
Yeah, it was a very good finish, and I wouldn't put anyone at fault in particular for that. Aside from, it was one of those moments where we've opened up, we've tried to counter press, having lost the ball. It's a slightly messy phase on the left hand side, and then you're really vulnerable against them where they can switch from right to left very quickly. And it was one of the few occasions where we didn't have a really good cover against Boanga, who I think we dealt with really, really well. One of the league's best players for sure. Over the course of the 70 odd minutes beforehand, and then the point at which they open up and they find themselves with a touch of space to square across the box. They were really clinical from there. So that's disappointing. I think the nature of having sort of given up one really clear chance only, I would say, over the course of the game, is the frustrating thing, because I think largely we defended really well. We were really disciplined, really willing, really well organised. We carried out the game plan almost to the letter for large periods. So I can take some satisfaction from that. But obviously, the nature of losing in that way is tough.
What was the reason for Marcanic coming on for Rosales?
No, Joe is he's just feeling something. He's had a couple of sort of muscle concerns over the course of preseason. We wanted to make sure that we didn't, at this stage in the season, really push him to a limit that ends up costing him weeks and months. So he was 50-50 about continuing. I made the decision on his behalf. I also feel like in a situation like that, when you feel like you're inevitably going to make a change in 10 or 15 minutes time, you're better off making it at halftime, from the perspective of organisation, retaining one of the opportunities to make subs in the second half, set play, detail, that sort of thing that's often tough to communicate from the side. So I felt like it was a justified decision. I think Anthony did relatively well.
Speaking of which, do you need Anthony to close down a little bit more on that Obobisi chance?
Yeah, I think there's possibly slight fault there. I think he's backed into the box very quickly without there being a real threat off his shoulder. So I feel like you'd be nitpicking a little bit there, because it's a relatively low quality chance from the edge of the box. But for sure, if we were in a perfect world, Anthony would have stayed on, or jumped up quicker. But I can't be too critical of him there, because I understand where his movement comes from for sure.
You've spoken about playing with two center forwards and how sometimes it leads to some difficulty getting pressure to the ball. But today it seemed like you were almost inviting LAFC to go over the top or try to go in behind the defense. Was that the game plan, or what were you looking at in terms of?
They're a team that wants to play through the middle of the pitch. Three good midfield players that can handle the ball. They want to go into the middle and then switch quickly to two very dangerous wide players. So we wanted to make sure that we took that space well away. And I felt largely we did. I didn't think they caused us huge problems for large periods of the game, and we've had enough chances on the counter attack through set plays toward the end, through more sort of general organisation. But I was pleased with us defensively. I think this is a really tough place to come. You get a sense of the atmosphere really carrying them. It's very difficult, I would say, to get a real foothold in the game, to be the dominant team here against them at home in front of that crowd. So I think the game panned out roughly as we would have expected to. But we've in one small moment allowed the game to flip on its head, unfortunately.
When you talk about those early chances, obviously Tanny 5 minutes, you bow off the post. I think around 15. Are those the two that stand out most to you?
Yeah, for sure. Tanny's was a really good chance, and obviously Kelvin's also. And then I think we threatened in various ways from set plays from that point onwards. And then Sang Bin comes on and has a good chance. Kelvin has a good chance at the end.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think for not the lion's share of the ball, we've had some really good chances, which obviously we're set up in a very strategic way to find chances in certain ways, and I think we've done that relatively well today. So again, if I strip the scoreline away, I think there was some really good stuff performance wise, and I don't think any of us are looking at that as a performance that says there are multiple problems to fix, or we've got a long way to go before we can be competitive this season. I think you've seen a very competitive team against, as I say, one of the best in our conference, and I'm sure over the course of the 30 teams. So I think there's certainly more good than bad today, but we as we always do, we'll pick it apart in detail and make sure we learn the lessons that we need to.
We saw today from goal kicks, there were a lot that were just flying out at the center forwards rather than maybe someone on the halfway line. Was that just designed to push LAFC back as far as possible, or what was the reasoning
Yeah,
behind that?
I think we had relatively good success with that, and obviously they're a team that want to press very aggressively from goal kicks. They set the pressure off really quickly. Um, we've got certain strengths on the last line, of course, when we play with Kelvin and Tanny. So we want to make sure that we use that well. We're really well set up underneath that to make sure that we are there to clean the second balls up. And I felt again it was a useful ploy for us for sure, because it leads to set play moments. It leads to moments where we can establish good possession in the opposition's half. So that there is for sure detail that sits behind that. And yeah, I was relatively pleased with that. I thought Dane kicked the ball really well, and it's of course a big part of being a modern day goalkeeper, particularly when we're working in the way that we do with Tanny and Kelvin at the moment.
What did you think of Morris's game? It looked
Yeah.
like an
I thought
intervention in 45 minutes was pretty good.
I thought he had a really good 90 minutes, I would say overall. Very composed, very strong in his 1v1 duels. He stepped in with the ball well. He made things happen. He was willing to really take responsibility on the ball, which is a big thing. And obviously, he's someone that has got a really nice set of attributes to work with. And between him and Nicholas Romero, Dev, we've now got good options on that side. So yeah, I'm sure he'll be, when he looks back at that, pleased with that step that he's made. And that was an important thing for him tonight, to make sure that he did take a step forward and that he handled that sense of occasion and the difficulty that comes with playing. One of a few games that you've played at this level in front of a crowd like this against a team like this. So it was certainly a good night for him.
We got time for one or two more questions.
I was curious what you thought of Joaquin Pereira and his sort of role on a night like this with the game plan that you had tonight.
Yeah, he's taken big strides forward, Joaquin, and I do feel like the position that he's playing in at the moment suits him well. The way things look around him. It brings the best out of his passing ability. The fact that he wants to play forward often. No hugely memorable moments tonight, but I've been really pleased with him over the course of 6 or 7 weeks now, with his physical condition, his adaptation from a defensive perspective, his adaptation to a new league, a style that is distinctly different to the style that he was playing in, and is typical across the league in Argentina. So I felt like. Tonight was a continuation of that, not spectacular, but certainly solid and a good step forward.
You mentioned Bawanga being one of the best players in the league. How did you feel like Bongi did against him? What was kind of key for Bongi to have success?
Yeah, I think Bongi and Carlos did a great job.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to give, we obviously basics, we didn't want to give Bawanga big spaces to attack in. We wanted to make sure we killed the spaces on the counter attack well. We wanted to make sure that when he received the ball 1v1, we had good cover, good support. I'm sure all the things that most coaches would talk about in his case, because he's obviously very dynamic, very aggressive. He wants to back defenders into the box, so you have to be really detailed in terms of how you defend those situations, with there being very small margins in terms of committing fouls close to goal. So I think on 90%, 95% of the occasions in which he had the ball in a threatening position, we dealt with it really well. The one that we didn't came from, as I say, a turnover where we were a little bit loose in our structure, and suddenly they found some space that wasn't there for the large majority of the game. So I think that the two of them will get a really big pat on the back for how they played tonight.
All right, that'll wrap it up for Eric Ramsay. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. We will
Good,
see
thanks,
you
guys. I'll speak to you next week.
week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
and then we'll have Morris joining us pretty shortly here. All right, we've got defender Morris Duggan. Morris, you've got Andy Greeter and John Marthaler, two of our beat reporters here in Minnesota. John, I will let you go for it.
Morris, how did you feel like the defensive game plan came off, maybe apart from the goal?
I think in the beginning it was great. I think first half they had obviously they have a few chances. They LAFC and we're away, but I think we were really organized and the things we were doing in preseason and coaches wanted, I think we really did that. And then you can see like if there's one moment where we lose concentration late in the game, a team like that takes advantage of that. So I think we can learn from that. But there was definitely some great things we did defensively and offensively.
How was it for you personally? I know you played 50 minutes or so last year, but to get your first start right out of the gate like this, what was it like for you?
I mean, definitely like the week leading up, it was a little bit of nerves, but once I stepped out there, I felt really good. The guys next to me and in front of me, they really give me confidence, and the coaches gave me confidence the whole preseason, and yeah, I felt like I belonged there, and obviously disappointed about the result, but personally, I really enjoyed it, and it was a great atmosphere and great weather. Like it's just a dream, you know.
You had a number of games that you played with Rhode Island last year. How much different was that from MLS Next Pro, and what did you sort of take away from that experience?
For me, it was different to MLS Next Pro because the game felt a little bit more meaningful in a sense. Not to disrespect the MLS Next, but it's a grown men and it's teams about cities with great support, especially Rhode Island. They had a great following, so there was a lot of fans at the games, and it felt definitely closer to the MLS. But obviously then there's another step in the MLS, but it really helped me prepare for that environment. Because I remember last year when I got my chances, it was a lot different, and this year I felt more prepared and confident.
Which players or which teammates were particularly helpful for you this week? We saw Asani and Dane during a training session help you out. Who else was kind of really impactful to get you ready for today?
I mean, it's all the guys. The chemistry is really good, and everyone tries to like help me, and I really like to hear the feedback. Dane gives me a lot of it, and I try to take everything in and learn from Boxy. I mean, he's a legend of the club and just a legend of the game. He has a great experience, and yeah, like you said, Hassani, Will in the midfield, they have the experience, and I just try to take in as much as I can. Zarek, he's not part of the coaching staff. He helps me a lot too, just to develop my game and the little details. Yeah, but it's everybody. It's the whole team. They gave me a really good feeling, and yeah.
I'm good, Andy, if you got any more.
What was kind of the mood in the locker room? Kind of walk us through kind of how they feel and you feel after this one.
I mean, obviously there's disappointment. Yeah, I think we did a lot of great things, and we should have at least got a point. We could on another day we might even win that game, and you obviously want to start off with 3 points. But Coach Ramsay came in afterwards and said like, look guys, there was great things, and on a different day we can win, and we can really take a lot of good things we did in the game and taken for next week. We get a home game in front of our fans. It's a completely different story, and I think we really showed that the potential this year. And yeah, on a different day, we walk away with something like today.
Thank you.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you, Morris. Appreciate it. Safe travels.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And we will see you both at Allianz Field this coming weekend.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yep.
Thank you.